Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'd like to talk about some very important events that are here to come. And the way that I'm going to analyze these events is through looking at where the planets are headed and the eclipses in terms of the United States chart. So we're going to be looking at the chart of the United States, and this is the Kelleher chart, which James Kelleher, Vedic astrologer, devised this birth time for the United States, and it works beautifully. It has worked through all of the major events in the past, and now I'm going to give you some major predictions that I feel are imminent based on this chart. So looking at the chart of the United States of America, we have the birth as July 4th, 1776 at 6:30 p.m., so 1830 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now there's all sorts of charts out there, but I feel like this one really works. So we're going to be looking at this chart and we're going to be comparing it to where all the planets are going to be transiting. So looking at this, the first thing that comes to mind that is so incredibly powerful, of course, is where Rahu and Ketu are. Wherever they are going to depict for a year and a half many changes in the world. So currently right now, as I speak, which we are in 2018 in May, I'm looking at the fact that Mars is just entering into Capricorn. Its place of exaltation, it becomes extraordinarily strong. So now Mars is joining forces with Ketu in the sign of Capricorn. This represents government, this represents leaders, this represents changes in the economy. Always it has something to do with the economy. Because if you will notice where in the United States chart, we have a Sagittarius ascendant around 8 degrees of Sagittarius as the Lagna ascendant. But if you'll note in the second house of the United States chart, Ketu is there, natal Ketu that is, around 15 degrees of Capricorn. Now, transiting Mars as of May has just entered into Capricorn. And I want you to know the place where Mars is going to stand still, will be 15 degrees of Capricorn. This is huge. So when we look at this, Mars will station in Capricorn, and this will be, it's going to station it's going to go retrograde, which means it's stationing right before this, June 26th. It's going to station at 15 degrees of Capricorn, right on Ketu in the United States chart. In the second house, this deals with the economy, this deals with finances. Now, going back to while Mars is in Capricorn, it enters Capricorn. And once it's there, May 3rd through November 7th, it will be in the sign of Capricorn. But Mars is full-bodied strength in Capricorn. But when it turns retrograde on June 26th, this is where the energy becomes dysfunctional, because an exalted planet retrograde will act like a debilitated planet. So you're going to see a big shift of energy and change. And when it stations on Ketu in the United States chart, financial matters are going to be going crazy. The stock market, the economy, everything's destined to shift and change. Now, Mars will be retrograde for approximately 2 months. So it's going to turn direct. This will be August 27th at 4 degrees of Capricorn. And if you will notice, the point where it stations to go direct is almost exactly opposed Mercury in the United States chart at 3 degrees of Cancer in the 8th house. Now we're going to be talking a lot about the 8th house because this is imperative. This is where in the United States chart, Mercury is in the 8th house in Cancer, and it is conjunct Rahu. Mercury, Rahu in the 8th house in Cancer. So what we're going to see happening is that the Ketu in the 2nd house, where the eclipse is going to be happening, is going to shake up matters. And the 8th house deals most of all with scandals, with dark things that we don't know about, things that are hidden, things that are secret, things that are a problem. And these scandals, the dirt, the things from the past is going to be surfacing with these eclipses happening here in Cancer, Capricorn. But what I find is to move it ahead when we have the nodes go into Gemini and Sagittarius, whenever Rahu goes into Gemini and Ketu goes into Sagittarius, we have had some of the most tragic events happen worldwide when the nodes transit these signs. Now let me remind everyone, the nodes take 18.5 years to go all the way through all 12 signs of the zodiac, and they remain in one sign for 18 months, a year and a half. So every 18.5 years, let's go back and analyze some of these situations and scenarios. So we have Rahu headed for Gemini and Ketu headed for Sagittarius. They will change signs March of 2019, and they will stay in Gemini, Sagittarius till September of 2020. And what you're going to find in that period of time is what we're focusing in on. But I think the events that are happening currently right now are the undercurrents that are leading up to this event that can be happening in the process when we have the nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius. Let's go back and look at some of the previous events. 1945 in August, Rahu was in Gemini, Ketu was in Sag, the bombing of Hiroshima. This was horrific, and this involved the United States, of course. Now, another big event, 1963, November 22nd, was the assassination of President Kennedy. Rahu was in Gemini, Ketu was in Sagittarius. Another step forward, the year of 2001, September 11th, Rahu in Gemini, Ketu in Sagittarius. This was, of course, the most horrific attack on the United States. And as I said, they're headed towards these signs again every 18.5 years. But let me go back to the year of 1983, where we kind of had a miss of a 1982-83 was another time that we had Rahu in Gemini and Ketu in Sagittarius. And there wasn't anything horrific that happened. But the time before that, when Rahu was in the 8th house, where it is right now, it was in 1981. So Rahu was in the 8th house in Cancer, Ketu in Capricorn, where they are now. What happened that year was 2 missed attempts of assassination. President Reagan, and no one knows just how sick and how he almost died then, but did not. Then we're looking at Pope John Paul. He was shot as well that same year. So my assessment is when the nodes are traveling in the 8th and 2nd house, there are so many things being planned that result by the time they enter into Gemini and Sagittarius. So now is the time that we possibly can avert tragedy, because this is where Rahu and Ketu are currently right now, in Capricorn and Cancer in Capricorn. So I think you've got the picture now. We're talking about what's to come. And this summer, when these eclipses are occurring, there is a solar eclipse around July 12th and another solar eclipse around August 11th. These are partial solar eclipses, but that lunar eclipse is total. And it is conjunct Mars and K2 solar lunar eclipse. The moon, K2, and Mars will be within a few degrees, around 9, 10, 11 degrees of the sign of Capricorn. The economy is going to go insane. It's going to go probably up and then it could crash, but major things are happening. We're talking about the second house of the United States chart. That's finances. But it is aspecting the planets in the 8th house, which is corruption, which is scandals, which are so many things that are brewing. And it's very dangerous for the United States. And this could affect the president. So the president, I think, is well aware of what's going on around him because there are so many forces that are trying to force him out. And they will take extreme means to do so. All of this is brewing. He doesn't know who he can trust. This is all brewing right now, this July, that things are going to become this intense. Right before we have the lunar eclipse, also in July, around July 26th, Mercury turns retrograde. So there are so many events that are pointing towards this cataclysmic event. So we have got to be very conscious, very aware, and avert tragedy. So Saturn is coming together with Pluto in the sign of Sagittarius. And there will be a lineup of planets where the eclipses start happening again in Sagittarius and Gemini around December 26th, where we have Saturn, Ketu, Pluto, Jupiter, which can magnify things, by the way, Mercury, and the sun and the moon. This is huge. Things are evolving to this major event of change and transformation. The last time, remember, they occurred in the first house of the United States chart was September 11th. So we have got to be conscious and try to avert things, because things, we do have free will. Yes, we can change things, but it takes a lot of conscious awareness. So looking at this summer, I want you to know that as these eclipses occur, prior to that, things are going to be heated up, especially when Mars starts to go retrograde, because Mars deals specifically with anger. And it deals with terrorism when you bring it together with K2. So Mars, K2, they will conjunct on June 7th. And after that time, they will pretty much be wavering back and forth together, Mars and Ketu. And Mars, I might add, will be out of bounds during this time as well in July and August. Why? What does that mean? When a planet is beyond the celestial equator, the path of the sun, and when it goes beyond the declination of 24 to 25 degrees, that means that planet is out of control. What it's about goes beyond what we can imagine, and Mars will be out of bounds. Mars is the planet of war, hostility, anger, and weapons. And together with K2, it can represent terrorism. So we've got to really be on the lookout for what is transpiring through these months of May, June, July, August, and September. By the time we start to get to October and November, things will be cooling off somewhat. So this is totally important. Another variable that's important is right now, as we speak in May, Saturn has been standing still. Actually, Saturn's station to go retrograde, it was around April 15th, around that time. So it's standing still at the degree of 15 degrees. And when I look to the United States chart, Jupiter is 15 degrees of Gemini, while Saturn stands still at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. This is difficult. Very, very difficult. Jupiter is the planet that rules prosperity, it rules the chart, and it rules the 4th house of the United States chart. What does that mean? Jupiter rules Pisces in the Vedic astrology. It means there can be earthquakes, there can be major shifts, because when I did my research, I found the last time that Saturn was aspecting Jupiter, ruler of the 4th house of this chart, there was a big earthquake in California. So, and going back to the big earthquake in San Francisco that happened, I believe it was 1906. That was when Rahu and Ketu were, where Rahu was once again in the sign of Cancer and Ketu in Capricorn, where they are now. So this has the propensity to bring on earthquakes this summer as well. So earthquakes, a big crash with the economy, possible assassination attempts. We have got a full plate coming up here. This is going to be intense, and I want people to be aware, because you've got to prepare. And on some level, prepare yourself spiritually so that we can help alter and avert certain things that could happen, because all the signs astrologically are pointing towards something very difficult occurring in the United States. We know the economy is going to be a volatile roller coaster. Now, another thing is, whenever Pluto and Saturn come together, they come together about every 9 years in a hard aspect, not a conjunction. So a hard aspect is whenever Saturn and Pluto are conjunct, opposed, or in a square aspect. This happens every 9 years, and every time there's a breakdown of the old, the things that aren't working anymore. But within the government, this is a breakdown in the government. So you will find that Pluto and Saturn were opposed to each other around September 11th. Yes, so they were in opposition. So now we are looking towards the conjunction, and this will transpire around the end of this year and into 2019 is where they will come together, where they will separate and transit together into the next sign, which Saturn and Pluto will be transiting together towards the end of 2019 and into 2020. They will, by February, transit Pluto and Saturn will be in Capricorn. Remember, this is not tropical Western astrology. I'm talking Vedic sidereal astrology. But when they go into Capricorn together, this is a huge breakdown of government affairs and rulership. But it's clearing the air for a better, more aware future for things to come. So always we are looking at destruction as a means for cleansing, and it looks like there's going to be a lot ahead for us. That's what I want to say. So just knowing this, please do what you can to be more aware, more conscious, focus in on following your truth, your spirituality, and remember, the world changes with you, starts all within. So this is what I see coming. There's so much focused in on the United States chart, and I see so many other things pointing towards transformational change of a huge proportion. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. And if you would like to learn Vedic astrology, you can go to my university website, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. And furthermore, I am having a conference here in Dallas, Texas. If you would like to come join us and be a part of talking about these future events and learning astrology, come to my conference, which will be October 5th through the 7th in Dallas, Texas. Go to the website, which is futureofastrology.com. Thank you.